Hello, everyone. Welcome to a book-based interview where today we talk to author Josh Oaktree. Josh is an author and the founder of Oaktree Comics, an independent children's book publisher where imagination meets environmentalism. Josh has released 5 books with the inclusion of the Art and Oakie series, which you can all check out on his website www.oaktreecomics.com. Josh, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's a joy to be here.
Of course, of course. And before I get started, at any point, if you guys are curious about Josh's journey with Oaktree Comics and you wanted to follow him on that path, feel free to check out his Instagram at Oaktree_comics and his TikTok at Oaktree Comics with a capital O, T, and C. And his website as well, just to drop it again, is www.oaktreecomics.com. But yeah, Josh, our first question for you is, first of all, this is the first time we've had a chance to interview somebody that is managing and founding a publishing house. And the first question I just wanted to ask is, what came first? Was it your journey with writing a book and becoming an author, or was it the publishing route with founding a publishing house for your books? And on top of that, what got you into reading or this whole journey?
Okay. I guess I enjoy biting off more than I can chew. So, I founded Oaktree Comics during the pandemic. It was June of 2020.
Mm.
My background's in screenwriting. I went to film school at the American Film Institute, and the jobs I was working on were paused. We were all, you remember then probably.
Yeah.
It was a fun time. Let's go back. No.
Absolutely, yeah.
Um, Yeah, so I was really thinking about like my impact as a storyteller. And I was doing a lot of hiking at the time, a lot of getting outdoors, and the environment has always been really important to me. So the first story that I'd end up writing is called Do You Speak Tree?
Mm.
And I was working on that project, and I don't know why. I just thought I was like, okay, I'm gonna found a publisher simultaneously. So I founded Oaktree Comics at the same time that I was creating that story. And it just seemed to make sense. And I think part of it was with filmmaking and like there's always like this chicken or the egg moment. Like I write my script and then someone will come and make it like that's the goal. But then it's like you have to wait for so long for someone to actually come in and make the story. So like the beauty of indie filmmaking is like, no, we're gonna make a story. Let's do it now. So I think my instinct was like, I'm not gonna wait for permission for someone to be like, okay, tell the story you want to. I was like, I want to create this. I believe it should be in the world. So I'm gonna do whatever it takes to do so. And that's why I think there was this motivation to create Oak Tree Comics simultaneously. And the vision from the get-go was imagination that speaks up for the environment. But I feel like that vision around the company kind of crystallized as this book came out and we started working on more projects. So I think that answers a lot of your question, but there was a second parter that I'm forgetting.
Oh yeah.
You,
First of all, that was a really great start. Like you really just blew this whole thing open. That's amazing. I think it's really cool how you just start off by saying that, you bit off more you can chew, because I feel like that's how a lot of people operate. Like for example, like I think for book based, it speaks for us as well, where we were just
yeah,
grad students, and in the beginning we didn't know anything, but we were just passionate, and we just kept on going with it, and we decided to, if we were gonna use make book based into a school project in our MBA program, why not make it into a company after? So we just kept on
love
going for it. And the second thing I wanted to say is I think it's awesome how your journey was actually in screenwriting and in the film industry, and it turned into books and publishing, because I don't think many people talk like that, with talking about their journey starting off with one industry and it seeps into the
that.
other.
Yeah. Um, well, I know there was a second part, but I want to
Yeah.
continue that thought, which is I feel like once you're in a creative field, you're learning school skills and tools that you can apply to other things within the general creative realm. So just because you're a writer doesn't mean that that's the only thing you can be. So I love that the skills I learned in film school, especially collaboration, is so applicable to publishing,
Right.
and that you can there's like this freedom to explore and you don't have to be just one thing. So I think I've really valued that as I've written stories and published them.
Yeah, we're gonna be best friends, dude. Because I
Okay.
totally agree
Nice.
with you. Like, just
Yeah.
working with book base, it's really made me more confident in my own writing. Like, I've been doing writing on the side as well, and I've been really. And you can even ask Jalen. Like, when I started watching movies, I got into movies. got into
Yeah.
directing, got into like this whole thing where I was like, oh yeah, I could totally just do screenwriting and stuff because I've been writing stories. Like, why can't I turn it into a screenplay? And so I've been like
Yeah.
looking at classes, and my friend is actually at he graduated from Santa Barbara Community College, but he is doing his own like comedy slash sketch series on YouTube and stuff. So he's doing a lot of directing and casting and stuff, and it's so cool because I sit with him sometimes behind the camera and I'm taking notes because I'm like, wow, like I could totally see how people can take one thing in a creative realm, whether it's a song or a book or whatever, and turn it into a film or turn it into something that people
Mm.
can see on a different medium. And I just think that's really awesome how you kind of like echoed that thinking that I think I've had for a while, but I just didn't know if I was just crazy. Like it's rare that
Yeah.
usually when people want to go into different creative industries or different routes, they're kind of bad at it. So I'm like, oh, maybe there's a problem. Like I've always seen like some of my favorite artists, like they're like, oh, I'm gonna make a movie. And I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
buddy, like, maybe we should stick to the album first, and then we'll see what
Yeah.
happens. Yeah.
Well, I think it's important to redefine the word bad.
Hmm.
I think often people try something, like they try drawing, and sometimes I'm even guilty of this, where I say I'm bad at drawing. It's not that I'm bad at drawing, it's that I haven't taken the time to learn the skill set and to really value that specific creative field. And
100%.
everyone is quote unquote bad when they start, but it's about exiting that mindset where you're viewing yourselves in kind of black or white terms, good or bad,
Right.
but just enjoying the creativity itself and growing within that field. And I think the more I kind of take on different forms of storytelling, the more I appreciate like the joy of learning how to tell a story in that format.
100%.
Yeah.
100. I think it's all about energy. Like if you go in with the right
Yeah.
mindset and the
Yeah.
willingness to learn from mistakes and everything, I think then like there's no such thing as a quote unquote bad project. I guess I meant it in the sense where it's like I've known some celebrities that try to get into different realms, but they don't
Yeah.
show that enthusiasm, and they're kind of like maybe either using this transition for more money purposes, or they're just trying to get something else out of it that I don't think really stands with like the creative like realm itself. So I totally get what you're saying though.
I hear you. I
And
hear you.
the second part of the question that I wanted to ask really quick was like, what got you into reading? I'm sorry, like I know we got into a
Into
side tangent.
reading.
Yeah.
Okay. So reading. Oh, I have great parents. So I feel like they read a lot to me as a little kid.
Hmm.
So shout out to the parents. Um, I think on top of that, specifically comics, I grew up in the 90s, so I would read the newspaper comic strips every single day. Like I would take the newspaper, take the sports section and the comic section, and that's what I'd read. So I love Peanuts, and like that the comic section itself grew into a love of like comic strip compendium. So I had all of Calvin and Hobbes, all of Far Side, um, again all of Peanuts, and I just devour them. And this was before like graphic novels were readily available to like all ages. So that was like my entry into the medium. And then when I was in high school, I have a uncle who writes flash fiction, like really short stories, and he introduced me to the graphic novel art form. Gave me a really adorable, heartfelt, also a little sad graphic novel called Goodbye Chunky Rice by Craig Thompson. And that's what kind of that and other books, indie graphic novels, got me to fall in love with that specific medium. And ever since, like, I mean, I also love all types of storytelling. So, like, films, TV, all that feeds into my love of stories. And even if it's not specifically reading, like film or TV, it feeds back into that love of books and stories.
Yeah.
Wow.
I can definitely relate to that. I also grew up like reading the comics at my grandparents' house. I would take the comics
Yeah.
from their newspaper, and me and my brother shared like the Calvin and Hobbes huge like compendium books. And I used to read through the Bones graphic novels that were
Yeah.
like huge for a while, and that definitely resonates with me. I feel like
Yeah,
similar
I had
stories.
Bone too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no, but that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Um,
Yeah.
we wanted to ask a little bit more about Oak Tree Comics specifically.
Yeah.
Why do you have a focus on environmentalism?
Part of it comes. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear the dishwasher in the background. Stop
No,
Oh
I
no,
hear
you're good. No worries. No, no, we
it.
can't hear it. You're perfect.
Yeah. So why environmentalism for Oak Tree Comics? Part of it is just who I am. Uh, I've loved nature for a very long time, and that has to do a lot with like the stories I read as a kid. So in addition to comics, uh, my mom and I discovered recently, like, we were like, what was that series? This Smithsonian did a series of books about animals that came along with a plush. So I had like the whole collection. So like when I was like 5, 6, I had a bunch of plush stuffed animals that I had stories to go along with them. So like that
Uh,
was kind of who I was. I like adored The Lion King too as a kid. So I loved animals and I love that. And then in terms of growing up, I played a lot of sports, and that like love of being active and athletic grew into a love of nature, like hiking, exploring. I do a lot of rock climbing, so um, that's just part of who I am. So you take that and you tie it to the fact of where we are uh, as a world right now and what we're going through with all types of natural disasters and climate change. And it's just like we need more stories that advocate for protecting our planet and for protecting our homes and habitats and the animals that coexist with us. So that's largely where it came from. And the more I write stories specifically for Oaktree Comics, trying to hit stories along that theme, the other element that's really baked into Oaktree Comics stories is there's so much negativity. It's hard to talk about climate change because there's so much anxiety, and it's not necessarily fun to talk about
mhm.
because of yeah the dire nature of it. So Oaktree Comics stories try to tackle that material from a more optimistic lens. And if we are more hopeful, then we can do more to actually change things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think it's great that you're taking that optimistic route because I feel like when people talk about environmental change, I feel like when companies talk about it, my first impression is like, oh, okay, you're just saying this so it just sounds good. I don't really know if you're really taking proactive change behind the scenes to really make sure you keep up with that promise. Where if somebody was like,
Yeah.
oh, 100% of these funds go towards the environment or something. And
Yeah.
I think it's great because you're right. Like, when you think about the condition of the planet and like all the, the past endeavors and current endeavors that we put into like trying to halt like the stuff that we see in the world today, like it is really anxiety inducing. And like the more you think about it, you kind of come out of this with this really dark mentality where it's like, wow, like, we're really hurting a resource that we need to like essentially live. And I
Yeah.
think Oaktree Comics could be a really great gateway for like children at least, or like younger audiences to kind of get into a very serious matter, but kind of like in a way where somebody's holding their hand, where I feel like the optimism is 100% necessary because I don't like somebody like I remember I took an environmental science course when I was in university, and I had two professors. One course with this one professor was like, "We're all gonna die. This is the reality. These are the facts. Everybody in Congress is bought out by companies. Good luck." And I was like coming out of that being like, wait, like this is horrible. Like why do we even like how could we allow such a thing? And the second
Yeah.
professor brought in a documentary made by these people that I think were from Sweden or either from Switzerland, and it's these three college graduates, and the documentary is about how on their hunt to like stop and bring awareness to like the environmental harm that we are currently causing, they're also going through nature. So they take scenes and a lot of snippets of like nature and like the roads they're walking on. And that movie alone I think really speaks to that cause where it's like you can still believe in the beauty of the planet while trying to fight the harmful things that we're doing to it. Like it's not just a black and white thing where it's like
Yeah.
this is a serious topic, you need to be serious versus oh this is so like it's a very optimistic thing, we could take it lightheartedly. I think there's a really good mix that can really take place in the middle. And I think Oaktree Comics, like from what you're talking about, it seems like it's doing
Yeah.
exactly that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's cool to hear you kind of talk about the mission of Oak Tree Comics. And I think when you publish a book, like there's the actual creative thought that goes into crafting it, and then you release it. And
Mm-hmm.
then it becomes the audience's story and interpretation. And I was kind of noting that too as you're talking about Oak Tree Comics. It felt very similar. Like I have this idea for what Oak Tree Comics should be and how it can impact the world. At a certain point, though, it's in the hands of the readers and what they'll do. So it's cool to see. One of the reasons why I love publishing is seeing that impact, seeing how the stories change how kids think about the world and how they interpret the stories in ways that I didn't necessarily initially envisioned.
Yeah.
So that's really special.
Yeah, absolutely. You were just talking about being a publisher, and the next question has to do with this, but
Yeah.
we were just curious, like, what is it like being the managing director of an independent book publishing house, and is the industry open to allowing independent book publishers to succeed, or is it a little bit like harder with the existing like, conglomerates like Penguin and like, the other big publishing houses as well?
That's a big question.
Yeah, sorry. We're just so curious because like that's always something
Yeah.
that we hear about, like publishing, publisher housing,
Yeah.
but it's such a closeted industry. Like we don't really know a lot about like what happens in that scene.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad to kind of delve into it. So Oaktree Comics exists in the indie publishing space.
Hmm.
So what does that mean? What it means is that at June of 2020, I decided that I wanted to publish a book, and I set out to do it and released it. And it's only continuing because readers really care and engage with the material. So it is 100% dependent on engagement and on people supporting the business. Um, uh, I don't know how well that kind of explains it, but it's not like there's a huge marketing
Mhm.
company behind Oaktree. It's
Hmm.
myself, it's my cousin who volunteers her time as creative director, and then it's the artist we work with. So it's a very small team,
Right.
and for on a project by project basis, uh, different people come on board, whether it's a proofreader or editor. And the hope is to kind of grow that, to continue growing that team around the vision of imagination that speaks out for the environment. And if we're successful, uh, eventually, like next time we talk, I'll be like, oh, and there's this person who does that job and this person who does this job, and it'll be a little bit bigger, but it'll still be a small company at that point, I'd imagine. In contrast, when you're talking about um, traditional uh, traditional publishing and the big five, like they're massive entities.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Um, and I've actually never worked with for or with a traditional publisher, so I can only speak so much about how that works and the differences. With Oaktree Comics, um, it's very much about collaboration. It's about the team uplifting each other and helping us grow the best story possible. And I love that. That's coming from a filmmaking background.
Mhm.
And that's not always the case with traditional publishing. Sometimes there's more divided lines in between being a writer versus an artist. And I don't know which way is better. I just know the collaborative route is really, I love it for Oaktree. So it works really well. Um, any other aspect of the question that I didn't quite cover, uh,
No, no,
or
you
I might
definitely.
have peaked?
Yeah, yeah, no, you definitely answered it because like I mean, when I think about publishing houses, I do think about like big offices and stuff and like a big team, and I
Yeah.
never really understood what that looks like for the independent indie side. And I think that's
So
cool how it's a team of three right now, but like it's all about collaboration where you bring people in and out depending on what you need. And I think that creates a lot more flexibility in your situation where it's like, you're able to manage things easier because you only see things that you really want to have on the plate.
yeah. And I think when you're talking about independent publishing, it could be a situation like Oaktree Comics where the team's very small
Hmm.
and looking to expand, but small. And then you have larger independent publishers that have been around. Oaktree's been around for 5 years, but there's independent publishers that have been around for decades, and they may have a marketing department, they may have be much bigger, but they're still in comparison to the big five a pretty small entity. And I think uh, regardless whether it's traditional publishing or indie publishing, the more you can do to support artists,
Hmm.
uh, the more likely they'll be around for years to come to continue telling stories. So support your independent bookstores, go to your library, pick up books there. However you can support artists and writers, it goes a long way to allowing us to continue doing what we love.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that. No, that you totally
Yeah.
answered the question. Thank you.
Nailed it.
I am definitely a patron of my local
Yeah.
library. I love going to the library and going to
Yeah.
events like where when we met at the Irwindale Spring Book Festival. I
Yeah.
think that's also a great way to just go out and support and like yeah, be able to show up for people that are putting themselves out there. Otherwise, we would have never connected. Like this wouldn't
Yeah.
be happening either. So
Yeah, this is happening because of the Irwindale Public Library. So thank
yeah,
you,
yeah,
Irwindale.
100%. Do you have any advice for someone who would want to go publish their book, whether that's through an independent book publishing house or that's the more traditional route that they decide to take? Do you have any advice for someone that's trying to start that journey?
Um, so there's pros and cons to both, whether you're going traditional publishing or indie publishing. I think I'll speak more towards indie because that's what I do. It's never been easier to publish a story. This book was initially published print on demand, so that means we had the final PDF with all the art. We uploaded it to Ingram's what's it called? Ingram Spark and Amazon KDP. And basically, when a customer bought it, it was printed, and there was very minimal upfront costs to Oaktree Comics. So it was a great way to get started. The challenge with that I ran into doing children's books print on demand at the time, this was 4 or 5 years ago, there wasn't much of a profit margin to doing a book print on demand. So once I grew the audience enough, then I started doing print runs.
Mhm.
So now I don't do print on demand, but the initial point was it is incredibly easy to publish a book. All you had to do is upload the PDF and press setup or publish, and then people can order it and enjoy it. It comes in a printed form. It can be hardcover. It can be paperback. So that's the easy part. And if that route interests you, if you're entrepreneurial, I say go for it. Like share your creativity, share your story. The challenge with independent publishing and with whether it's print on demand or if you're doing a print run is you're wearing different hats as the creative. So you are going to, uh, if you're writing it, you're writing it, creating art, you're designing the book, but then you also have to get the word out. So you are dependent on marketing it on social media and other forms if you choose to. You also have to do the distribution. So how are you going to get the books to people? If you do print on demand, it's nice because I believe Amazon. I'm not promoting Amazon, by the way. But if you do print on demand, it's sent out for you. So there's that built into it. But all of those pieces of the puzzle you have to figure out. So I think my advice would be um, to kind of first figure out what are your goals for the book. Do you just want to share it with friends and family, or do you want it to have a greater opportunity to reach more readers? Like, what's your priority?
Mhm.
And if it's you want to share the book, you want to get it out there in the world, and you're entrepreneurial, then do independent or self-publishing. And then if if you're not, if you're going the traditional route, I feel like we can talk another 20, 30 how to go that route. But you have to make that decision between independent versus traditional, and at all times, just like have fun with it. You're creating a story as much as you can.
Yeah.
Oh
Oh,
man.
that's awesome.
No, that was really great. No, that's so true because in today's world with all the technology that we have and all the opportunities to, like not only write your story but to also like publish it. Like this is probably like the best time for somebody that really has a story that they want to share. Like this would be probably the ideal time to really go out and try to get it out there because like there's ways to get around like the old obstacles where I was like, oh, to be a writer you needed to get like either software or you just needed to have like I don't know, like today we have Google Docs for example, right? Like
Yeah.
if you want to really write something, you can just go on there, type it up, and it's saved and it's free. And then when it comes to like printing and stuff, like the fact that you're saying we could do print to demand or do a printing run, I feel like they're back in the day, like there weren't even those options for independent
Yeah.
writers. And then on top of that, if there were, it was probably gate kept by a lot of like the traditional houses and stuff. But no, I think you're totally right. Like, I feel like if anybody really wants to get a story out there, I think as long as you
Yeah.
stay true to it, like what you're saying, and like really, have fun with it in the sense it's like you are creating a story. I think that's the most important part. I feel like people get too stressed out about the logistics or something. They forget that they're creating something that's inherently fun. Like it's supposed to be really like enjoyable because you're creating something that isn't real. Like it's fiction. It's your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great.
The other piece of advice I toss in there, even though it's independent, or self-publishing.
Hmm.
I personally prefer collaboration. So just because you're quote unquote doing it on your own doesn't mean that you can't or that you shouldn't bring other people in on the process.
Right.
Yeah.
So the books we create are only so good because of the team we build around each project, the artist involved, the editor, whoever it may be. It's that feedback that elevates the story and makes it as good as it can be.
Yeah.
Just curious, like, has anybody ever like visited you and like when you're doing collaborations, anybody like ever inspired you to write like a unique story? Like you weren't even thinking about it, but somebody else that was just like working with you or somebody that was in the audience was like, "Hey, I think it'd be cool if like Art and Okie did this," and you're looking at them
Yeah.
like, "Whoa, I never thought about that."
Oh, I wish I had a good example that came to mind right after we hang out. I'm gonna be like, dang it. But one of the most fun things about like doing school readings is often I'll end be like, all right, I did this once when I was in Vancouver with Josie Ann, who's an illustrator, and we asked the audience like, what book would you want to see? Do you speak? And they just shouted out like every single animal in existence. So that was fun, but like nonstop when we're collaborating, just people have different story ideas and like one idea builds off the next and it the end product is kind of like not a conglomeration but a mix of everyone's ideas and feedback, so it's nice how we're able to build off of each other.
Oh yeah, that must be
Yeah.
really rewarding. Just to know
Yeah,
that
that's
people are
cool.
listening to you and they're willing to give you back like any feedback that they can. Even if they're
Yeah,
kids to adults, it's like the fact that somebody hears you and they're just, hearing your question and they're giving you so much energy and enthusiasm. I think like the path of collaboration is probably ultimately the best way to even go about your mission, which is to spread the idea of environmentalism as well, where it's like if we can't, let's create these stories together and we can change the world together. Like I think that's really
yeah.
cool.
Like I've noticed the more stories I publish, in fact, I think every single story I published so far has a built-in theme about community and
Mhm.
how if we work together, we can uplift each other. And they each one does it in a different way, but it's kind of baked into the formula, and it's not intended, but it's also like inherently part of how we can change the world.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
absolutely.
love hearing that.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you have good momentum. Like the collaboration is always going to bring out new ideas and
Yeah.
continues to build on itself, which is awesome. We also wanted to know what is in the future for Josh Oaktree, Oaktree Comics.
Yeah.
Anything that you can share with us?
I so Josie Ann, who illustrated, let me get all three books up. Can I hold them all up at the same time? All right, we have Do You Speak Tree?
Hmm.
Do You Speak Bear? And Do You Speak Bee? So Josie Ann illustrated all these. We have another book in mind for the fourth one, but we're not working on that right now. What we're working on is a sci-fi environmental allegory picture book told through comics called A Good Planet is Hard to Find. And we are starting in on artwork on that this year. So we'll have sneak previews coming up on social media on Oaktree Comics. So that's one project that's we're working on. We're also simultaneously different art team, but Thorn the Unicorn is illustrated by Aster D'Amico, lettered by Haley Rose Lyon, creative director Amelia Boscov, and we're working on book number 2 right now. So this is the first collected volume. We're about halfway through creating the second one, and you can get the first issue of volume 2 as an ebook on the Oaktree Comics website right now. So this is also in the works.
Cool.
And then a project I'm really excited about. We're taking submissions for right now. It's called We Are Los Angeles, and it is going to be a middle grade anthology of comics in support of wildfire relief. So we're
Oh,
looking for Los Angeles-based creatives, writers, and artists to submit stories. And the idea is the anthology as a whole will take you through the story of what happened, starting with the fires, leading to the relief efforts, and again, that theme of community, the community coming together to uplift each other.
mhm.
And the mission of the book is to help LA be a more sustainable and equitable place for all. So I'm very excited about that project. Submissions are starting to come in, and if you think that you might want to submit a story, it'd be awesome to see yours. So that is Uh, what else is going on? That's what's going on at Oaktree right
That's
now.
all exciting. You have a lot of things going on right now.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Like honestly, I'm thinking about
Yeah.
if I should submit a story as well. I might even write something up and send it. That'll be really
Yeah,
cool.
so if you're submitting, you can be an artist writer, so someone who does both. You can be an individual writer who does not illustrate, or you can be an artist if you'd like to illustrate someone's story. You can send in your portfolio. So, Nathan, I don't know if you write and draw, but if you didn't, if you write a story and it's a good fit for the anthology, then we'd pair you with an artist that would match kind of the style and tone of the story you want to tell.
Wow. Okay, I
Oh.
will definitely think about that and get back to you. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
That, let me write that down. Let me write that down really quick. Hold on. Awesome, thank you. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Like, it's always great to ask, authors and now publishing houses, like, what's going on
Yeah.
in their world, just to, get an idea that, like, for people that are watching, like, there's always something to look forward to, and
Yeah.
there's always something to, like, keep in mind and stuff. So, um,
I
yeah.
I forgot one more shout out. In addition to that project, generally Oaktree Comics currently has an open submissions policy. So we're looking for young reader picture books that, like the picture books we publish have a highly visual nature. So they don't have to specifically be comics, but we're looking for visual picture books and middle grade books, uh, ideally comics that share in that theme of imagination that speaks up for the environment. So if you are a writer or an artist and you have a story that fits that mold, the team and I at Oaktree Comics would love to see it.
Whew, all right.
Yeah, you're like, I need to get back. I need to
I
write.
know, I need to get back and write. That's so exciting.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. And you have been talking. We have been like bringing up this concept on and off throughout this whole interview. But what we do with a book base is we love promoting the same thing that you're promoting with Oaktree Comics, which is like collaboration and community.
yeah,
We realized like this started in our MBA program, but book base is pretty much a product of this reality that we haven't seen a lot of people socialize around books, and we've always believed that that's such a beautiful thing when people can talk about literature with other people. But I feel like, especially in today's world of technology or just how busy everybody is, I feel like it's really hard sometimes to not only be up to date with other people on like literature, but even to find people that are like minded that also have
yeah.
similar reading tastes as you. And I just wanted to ask you, and this also goes back with like everything you've talked about, but what do you think is important about socializing around books? And when you were younger, did you ever grow up talking to your friends about books or like talking to them about comics since you were really into the comics from newspapers
Yeah.
and stuff? Yeah.
Um, wow. It's a deep question.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
uh, I,
we wanted to save the banger for the
Heavy
last.
hitter.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I love as part of my job, I do a lot of book festivals. So like I'll be at the LA Times Book Festival coming up. I get to do conferences, and it's just so beautiful to be a part of a community of people who love books. And I love like having a conversation, and they'll just mention a book I've never read before, and I'll be like, I need to get that from my library, or I need to buy it, and then I read it, and it changes how I think of things, or that story lives on with me forever, and I'll think on it, and it will shape who I am. So I love how stories can kind of shape the communities we're part of, um, and how that can enrich our lives. In
Mhm.
terms of like childhood, like I mean, I grew up in Harry Potter era, so like my mom and I were reminiscing recently about like going to the midnight book openings at it was I think it was Barnes and Noble. So like there was like this real sense of community, everyone getting together, dressed up in like different Harry Potter characters, and just embracing a love of reading. And I'm just thinking like over the years, like all the books I've read or those communities I've got to be a part of because of books, it just opens up your worldview of what you know in terms of the different communities you're exposed to and how you value all forms of diversity. So, yeah, it's just really special. I I think a lot boils down to just like a self-growth mindset, both in terms of creativity and living generally. And I feel like being a reader really informs that mindset for me, and I love that.
That was a great answer. Thank you so much for sharing that, Josh.
Very special.
Yeah, that it's been really special just talking to you about this whole journey. I feel like you're so honed in on exactly what your mission is with Oaktree Comics, and I feel like you explained that really well, like through your words and stuff, and like the way that you're able to communicate about how much like the environment or just collaboration and being around people really helps you. Like I think it's
Yeah,
really inspiring for anybody that watches this to kind of get that idea that not only can they do anything they want in the creative field, but also like when you are in that field you don't need to feel lonely about it, which I think is probably the
yeah,
biggest takeaway that anybody that's just been scared about doing something like this like can get from this interview. It's that like there's somebody out there that can probably not only help you but at the very least like give you feedback and maybe be there
yeah.
like when you need like that shoulder.
Yeah, I think that can be true of all creative fields,
Mm-hmm.
especially with children's book publishing. The people who are drawn to write and publish children's books, in my experience, are really nice people.
Yeah,
Uh, so they're glad to uplift and provide feedback and, yeah, just create this warm community.
this has been a great interview, Josh. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Like it's
Well,
seriously,
thanks for
I'm still
conducting
thinking
it.
about the LA fire, like the
Yeah,
wildfire
yeah.
anthology submission. Like that's really exciting. For again, just in case during this whole thing, if you guys want to check out Josh for Oaktree Comics, please check out his website, oaktreecomics.com, Oaktree_comics on Instagram, and Oaktree Comics on TikTok. But Josh, thank you so much for this interview. Like it
Yeah.
has been great talking to
Ethan, Jalen, thank you for having me. Yeah, what a joy. Yeah, thank
you.
you.
Love